Okay, moving on to the next team whose draft we'll be breaking down, that would be Sean McVay and his Los Angeles Rams. And I think going into this draft, the Rams were a team that for me, I was really keeping my eye out on because number one, they didn't really have that many picks, especially in the first round. We all know that over the last couple of years, we spoke about it a lot of times on this show, that the Rams have really built their team around 4 or 5 guys that are very good and are worth a lot of money. But we know in the National Football League historically, that really hasn't always worked out. And especially last year, when you consider the fact that the LA Rams ended up missing the playoffs, that was really not a good season. And it was really a disappointing season for the Rams. And now when you look at the fact that they lost Todd Gurley, they lose Brandon Cooks, even though I thought overall, big picture, that ended up being a pretty good trade as they were able to get an extra draft pick for that. But I got to say, I didn't love this Rams draft because they drafted 2 weapons with their first 2 picks, and I like Cam Akers. I think he could be a solid back, but at the same time, I just think when you look at this LA Ram team, they've lost so much, whether it's Clay Matthews, Corey Littleton, who are 2 of their top linebackers last year. I look at that position, and even though they did bring in Leonard Floyd, they're going to need guys to replace the tackling of those 2 players. They also lost Aqib Talib from last year's team and Marcus Peters when he was there. He was there for the first half of last season, and besides Jalen Ramsey, they don't even have a corner right now, a second corner that I really trust. And then losing Gurley, losing Brandon Cooks, they also lost some offensive linemen. I really don't love the current state of this LA Ram offensive line. Andrew Whitworth decided to re-sign, luckily for them, but he's getting up there in age. I did like the move to bring in Austin Corbett from the Browns, but especially on the right side of that Rams offensive line, that looks pretty concerning. And with their draft picks, they just didn't really do enough to address that. With their top 5 picks is really, when I look at this draft, like those are the picks I really look at. I know when I say I'm grading the draft, those are really the value. Those are really the picks I'm judging. And when you look at when you look at this draft for the Rams, I just think that they didn't take the positions they really needed, especially with their first 2 picks, drafting Cam Akers and Van Jefferson, running back and wide receiver at 52 and 57 overall. I think both those players could be fine, but if I was the Rams, I don't know how you didn't focus on offensive line. Over the last couple of years, Jared Goff has really shown you that he only succeeds as a quarterback when he gets good, proper protection. And last year, I believe that was one of the main reasons as to why the LA Rams really struggled, was because they weren't giving Goff enough protection. And I think with this draft, they didn't do enough of that. And while Van Jefferson is fine and could be very good, you still have Kupp, Woods, and Reynolds as your top 3 receivers. If I were the Rams, I definitely would have addressed a different position. The Cam Akers pick, I don't hate as much. I think he could end up getting a good run along with Darrell Henderson as the Rams' top 2 primary running backs next year. So I don't hate that pick as much, but the fact that they took a tight end in the 5th round before they took an offensive lineman, even in Bryson Hopkins from Purdue. They take Terrell Lewis, outside linebacker from the University of Alabama, and Terrell Burgess, the safety from Utah. I think both those picks are fine. We'll see how they are late in the draft, but I just didn't really like the Rams pick of taking Van Jefferson, not because I think he's really going to be a bad player, but more because of the fact that they had other holes, and they have receivers, and especially when you're this LA Ram team that really needs to find as many players, I don't even want to say on the veteran minimum, but guys that aren't going to cost you a lot of money. You could find many receivers around the league in free agency for a low price. I don't necessarily know that you could do that with offensive linemen and have it be effective. So that's why I didn't love this draft from the Rams' perspective, and my final grade for their draft is a C+. So I'm going to give the LA Rams a C+, because I didn't love the pick of Van Jefferson. I just thought there were other needs they could have filled during this draft.